Hey everybody, welcome to another live this Sunday. And before we start, as usual, I'm going to make sure I check to make sure the sound is nice and good, and then we'll start our conversation and let me know what you guys are feeling and what you're thinking as far as this current housing market and different things happening. Feeling what you're thinking is all right, perfect. On my end, the sound sounds good. If anything messes up, just let me know. As you guys can see from the title, we're going to really dig into, and I feel like we always have conversations over here every Sunday about the truth in regard to the current real estate market. But again, we'll try to dive into a little bit more. I will touch more about Metro Atlanta in this conversation. If you feel like you're experiencing similar I guess you could say aspects or similar type of trends in your market or your area, let me know in the live discussion that we're having over here. Hey dad. And then Kotex Sita said that's a sweet in regards to the thumbnail. So we'll have a conversation. Before we start, I like to say Happy Mother's Day. So if you are a current mother, Happy Mother's Day to you. And also if you hold the position as a mother in someone's life, Happy Mother's Day as well. And then we'll go from that particular point into, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, don't be scared to hit the like button because it helps to push this content through the algorithm. So that way, if you like content as such, it'll help you get you to other similar content areas in regards to real estate on YouTube. And as usual, if you see this video on the replay, comment below where you're tuning in from, how you got over to the channel. And if you see that shooting star button, which is called a hype button, don't be scared to hype the video, because again, it helps to push the these type of videos through the algorithm in regards to real estate, if you're interested in real estate content or just having discussions around what's happening in your local housing market or nationally when it comes to the housing market. All right, so I am going to turn off this music because I don't know if you guys can hear me over it, and we'll jump into this discussion today. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you're seeing something similar in your market. But yeah, we're going to talk about the truth of the current real estate market. But before we start, as usual, we've kind of dove into the habit of looking at the current interest rates. So let's look and see what those rates are at. If you are looking to purchase in the next couple, days, months, weeks, whatever you decide to do. So right now we have a 30-year fix at 6.42, conventional 15-year fix, conventional 5.99, the jumbo 6.59. That ARM at 6.27, the FHA 30-year at 5.93, and the VA 30-year at 5.97. Again, these are national interest rates, or mortgage rates, I should say. They're national mortgage rates across the board. So depending on your situation, your circumstances, it could either go up, it could go down, or maybe you might get this particular rate that's on the screen. But again, remember, it's all based off of your current debt to income ratio, different layers, credit score, X, Y, and Z. So that is where they fall as of right now. So as you can see, they have gone down a little bit. All right, now let's head over to what we are talking about. Hey, what's going on, David? Thanks for joining us this Sunday. So what we're basically talking about is, like I said, I'm diving more into the Metro Atlanta area because that is where I am currently at. And yeah, I just want to talk about the truth because I feel like not as many people are kind of cracking down truth, and it's not to be a scary Debbie Downer or anything in regards to what's happening in our housing market. But this is what I'm seeing just from every day looking at, looking at listings. When I'm looking online at listings for buyers that are looking to possibly buy a house in the current housing market, I am noticing that a lot of, let me make this a little bit bigger. I'm noticing that a lot of these houses these are a couple things that are happening with these houses. One, the homeowners that are trying to currently sell bought the house probably about 3 to 4 or 5 years ago. So we're getting a majority of homeowners trying to sell that just bought a couple years ago. And when you do reach out to some of these homeowners and you have these conversations with them to say, like, why are you selling, or what's making you trying to sell? They'll say, well, the rising property taxes, and rising insurance costs, HOA fees, because a lot of some of these HOAs are in deficits and they have now implemented assessments. I've talked to one home seller a couple years ago now He did decide to stay in the property because unfortunately he was underwater and he could not afford to get out of said property at the time. I'll probably swing back around and have a conversation with him again, see how he's feeling. But I know when we had a conversation, he was also stating to me that the HOA, a lot of people had stopped paying their HOA fees or their dues per se because they could barely afford to pay their mortgage, or they just felt like maybe they didn't want to pay their dues. And because of that, it put the HOA in a situation in which they had to turn around and started hitting people with some liens against their properties and filing for possible foreclosure. As you guys know, Georgia has implemented a new bill that's taking place in 2027. So I don't know how it'll, enact those type of liens going forward. But needless to say, that was what was happening at the time. And because of that, a lot of these people are trying to sell now. So I'm seeing that when it comes to home sellers in the area, people, of course, unfortunately, I should say, not of course. Unfortunately, what's happening too, as well, is that you're seeing a lot of properties that are being taken back by the banks, the mortgagors. So now you're seeing people who have fell behind in their mortgage payments, and now the mortgagors are taking them back. So you're seeing people in foreclosure statuses that are trying to sell as of right now, pre-foreclosures, foreclosures, REOs. Basically, they've already foreclosed. They've gone back to the bank. The bank is now selling them. You're also seeing, of course, a lot of hedge funds, institutional corporate investors trying to liquidate their assets as well, because they're no longer making any money when it comes to the rental part, just because property taxes have gone up. In the state of Georgia, you can claim a homestead exemption if you're a homeowner occupier. However, if you're an investor, you cannot claim that. So the homeowner occupier's taxes right next door to you could possibly be $3,000 a year. And investors could possibly be $6,000 a year. It's not making sense on the book, so a lot of them are liquidating properties and selling. We also had several other programs down here in the Metro Atlanta area in which they were like lease to own programs, lease to or rent to own, however you guys want to say them. Divvy Homes. We had Home Partners of America, who unfortunately has Home Partners have been bought out by Blackstone just because the entity could no longer support itself. They were allowing people to buy homes and then with the hopes of, rent homes with the hopes of buying them within a certain amount of years. A lot of these people decided that they didn't want to buy these homes. They actually left them, and that because of that, they couldn't sell them. Similar thing happened with Divvy Homes, where I had a talk with them about 2 years ago, and they were no longer buying homes. They said, whatever homes we currently have on our books that's what we are currently renting. We're not buying homes to allow for rentals to happen. So that's what's kind of going on in this Metro Atlanta area. And like I said, we'll dig deeper into it. Let me know what's happening and where you're at. Every real estate market is different, so you have to get more in detail with that realtor in that local market where you're at to see what's truly going on, digging in the ins and outs of the real estate beyond the surface or what is being told nationally or locally in your area. So in this report by the Fox 5 Atlanta, as you can see, this was July 16, 2025. So this was about a year ago. However, I picked this report because I'm actually seeing an increase beyond what it was a year ago. So it says Georgia homeowners falling behind on mortgage payments. It says a new study reveals that more people are starting to fall behind on their mortgage as costs that come with buying a home, such as taxes, insurance, rise faster than many people can keep up with. The monthly bill that was once predictable and is now in anything but. Cotality, a data technology company, said their report published on July 10th. Data and technology company, blah, blah. So this is talking about Cotality. Serious delinquencies were considered loans were 90 days or more past due, including those in foreclosure. Delinquency rates were the percentage of the count of active loans in the time period. It says homeowners are falling behind on mortgage payments. Study shows, according to Cotality data, serious mortgage delinquencies fell steadily for more than 3 years until 2024. Then when the trend turned. In the first quarter of 2025, the average national property tax delinquency rate, which means the homeowners were at least 1 month behind on payments, was at the highest point since 2018. The company found that almost half of U.S. states saw a slight uptick trend in mortgage delinquencies, and some states saw significant upticks. Says southern states see significant increase in mortgage delinquencies, so they're diving deeper. And these are the southern states. As you guys know, Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia had the highest change in the year-over-year serious delinquency rate. And then it goes down here. It says, to note, these states also, of course, face natural disasters contributing to higher insurance costs. However, Georgia is not really in that natural disaster. Like we've had natural disasters. Of course, every state kind of goes through their own sense of natural disasters, but this is more kind of trending towards Florida, right? As you can see right here in Florida, property taxes jumped nearly over 50% over 50% over 5 years. Cotality projects that those costs will continue to rise over the next 5 years. So if you're in Florida, let me know what you're seeing. Because I'm not in Florida, but I've heard a lot of as far as when it comes to Florida. But again, it's different when you're on the ground, right? Let's go down to where it's talking about Georgia. It says South Carolina also with the insurances, but it says Georgia, meanwhile, saw property taxes jump more than 700 on average in just 5 years. It says the last 10 years have seen home prices, homeowners, insurance, and property taxes surge across the United States. And then it goes into the top 10 states, and we'll get into more thing about that. Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, Nebraska. So, David, what are you seeing in Nebraska? Because it mentions your state here, too. I don't know what's going on in Nebraska, but let me know. Texas, North Carolina, Louisiana, Colorado, Indiana, Oklahoma. And then it says, thanks to mortgage rates, it's kind of telling you, it says more, dig deeper, more than half of homeowners in the U.S. said that they wouldn't be comfortable selling their home this year, no matter how low the mortgage rates go, according to another recent survey by Bankrate. As we guys know, some homeowners were able to lock in 2%, 3% mortgage rates, and because of that, they are okay in some instances where they're able to sustain even with higher property taxes occurring or home insurance occurring or even HOA fees kind of going up. However, the margins are getting real slim because now I'm starting to see people who have those lower mortgage rates starting to sell as well. So it just depends on your circumstances, what's happening around you, your job, different things. Because as we know, lives, meaning that one day could be great, the next day can be horrible. We're human beings, nothing's predictable. We all pray that we are able to maintain a sense of comfort, a sense of normalcy, as far as predicting what each day in life could be, I should say. However, as we've seen recently, people have getting laid off their jobs. You saw a Spirit where people were on the news talking about, I've been with this company for 9 years, 10 years, and now I don't have a job. And these might be particular people that may have purchased a home, right? And actually there is these influencers online who were they just purchased a home and the guy lost his job and he was working at Spirit. So it's very interesting. Coach Texas Caesar said, I'll take 5-foot snowdrift in my driveway over mud and snakes in my house. So you say you rather the snow than the snakes and all the stuff from Florida. David said, busy, still multiple offers. Had a buyer miss out on one today. Total of 5 offers. We came in 3rd place. So as you guys can see what David talking about, he's in Nebraska, right? So every state is different. In his state, they're still seeing those multiple offers occur. People putting several offers in and having bidding wars, it seems like, happening over there. So you gotta, like I said, you have to really talk to that local realtor in your area to really understand what is truly going on and how do you position yourself, whether a home seller or a home buyer in this current market as we're shifting in 2026. Hey, what's going on, Rhonda? Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you being here. So this was in regards to that. It says mortgage rates, as we kind of went over them earlier, as far as rising again. And so that's a little bit about that. So let's, did I just exit out? Is this still sharing? Okay. And now let's kind of go into Cotality as far as them making that report. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard right now. As far as talking about rising cost of staying put when it comes to home. Again, like I said, this article was published in 2025, almost close to a year ago. However, when it comes to Metro Atlanta area, this data kind of is trending upward as far as what I'm seeing. And I'll show you guys again, like I always do, the back end of what I'm seeing, because I am noticing this happening a lot, where a lot of people are going into foreclosure. A lot of banks are taking it back. Freddie and Fannie Mac has upheld properties. I dealt personally with someone who went through the situation as well. And so this is occurring. So we have to be honest and really dig into the current real estate market in regards to the Metro Atlanta area. All right, so this is giving you the overview. It says property taxes and insurance are breaking the promise of home ownership. For a long time in the U.S., owning a home meant you made it, not just because it was yours, but because it came with something rare, a fixed monthly cost. Rent might rise, jobs might come and go, but that mortgage, they stayed steady. So, as we all know, mortgages don't stay steady. Property taxes tend to rise, and the great financial recession, or I could say crisis per se, whatever you guys want to say, we saw property taxes lean down a little bit just because home values went down. There was a crash that occurred, and America was trying to rebuild itself when it came to that the housing market at that time. However, now we're seeing rising prices because home prices have gone up significantly since those days, right? And with that, in regards to mortgage, not your principal and interest is steady, and as you keep paying it off, it goes down. However, property taxes can still linger up. Also, your home insurance, right? As some of these home insurance carriers are saying, replacement costs and different things in regards to home insurance. So home insurance has gone up. And then again, if you have an HOA, the HOA assessment fees, they don't have enough in the reserves and different things like that. And I'm noticing that a lot around what's happening around Georgia now, that a lot of these HOAs are not in a good place. You could plan around it, build a life on it. So let's get more into right here. And it's talking about, again, in the mid 2024, the trend upturn. It says, while almost half of the United States saw a slight uptick, if you zoom in on certain states, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, the picture changes. These states, which have seen significant upticks in delinquencies, have also faced considerable natural disasters, as we talked about earlier. And so this is breaking down the loans, right? The top 10 states with the highest change in year-over-year overall serious delinquency rate, as I said, is saying Georgia. So these are the top three. Florida, all loans at 1.43%. And so as you see the number, it's not like a huge number, right? It's not like 30%, 50%, but it's showing that there's an uptick occurring. And like I said, this was from July 2025. So as of now in 2026, I'm seeing a lot of this play out as far as a lot of the homes that are currently listed on the market. Like I said, we're seeing REOs, the banks have already taken back the properties. They are placing them on the market for sale. Personally, they can't sell them at auction, or they tried to sell them at auction. I guess they figured they could get more if they put it on the open market. So they're not selling them. People, like some of these investors, are actually bidding on them at these auctions. And what's happening is that the bank is not getting what they want. So they're pulling them from the auction. They're like, hey, let's just try to sell it ourselves. And I'm noticing even when they go to sell it themselves, what was bid on at the auction is coming in lower when they sell it on the open market. It's very interesting. And again, I've experienced this personally with a seller that was trying to sell that decided to foreclose on their property. And I saw it in real time go through the auction. It was on auction.com, and they auctioned off this property about 3 times. They got these bids. They couldn't go but so high because this community had an HOA where they had rental restrictions. You couldn't really be an investor in this community. So if you bought it, you would have to have it would be a quick flip to try to see if they could possibly get money out of it. That whole particular subdivision has since then declined market-wise as far as homes. People bought homes starting in 2018 when that the subdivision was built for about $200 and something thousand. All the way in 2021, 2022, it went up to as much as people paying for resale on those houses about 460, 470-ish. And now they have that whole particular subdivision has now decided, has actually readjusted, and now home prices in that subdivision are selling for about 360, 350. And that particular home with the person that I was working with, that home, after the bank took it back, they went on to try to auction off. They end up selling it on open market with a realtor in Atlanta, because there's several realtors in the metro Atlanta area that literally only work with foreclosure properties, REO properties, which are foreclosure properties, REO properties. And so they have this whole workout where they work with these banks, these lenders, these institutional investors, and so it's certain realtors that work with property. So when I see these particular realtor names, I'm like, oh, they probably have a foreclosure. They probably have an REO. And the one realtor that ended up working with the property from the client I was helping, it was an REO, right? So this is all based off of my own personal experience, also what I'm seeing personally on the ground where I'm located. And so all I can speak is from personal experience, and that's what I'm doing. It says, so right here it's showing you how the different loans. It says conventional loans in Florida are at 1.05%. FHA loans is at 3.09%. VA loans are at 4.11%. So there's more delinquency and distress on those VA loans in Florida, and then it kind of heads into the FHA. And I don't know the reason for this, but what I'm going to base it off of is like with VA, when you're buying a house with VA, typically most VA buyers are not, and you don't have to put a down payment on purchasing said property. So what's happening now, from what I'm personally seeing, is once people are buying homes with a VA loan, they're already underwater because they have no stake in the game. And so they're not putting any down payment on the house. And with home prices kind of trending down, if you buy a house for $400,000 and then within the next 6 to 7 months, the house is now only worth $380,000, but you didn't put nothing down, you typically are already underwater. And so it's kind of harder for you to sell. And so when it's harder for you to sell, if you have any distress, you head into that foreclosure atmosphere. FHA, a similar thing, right? You put about 3.5% down. Typically, it's not that much that you're putting down. Most people, even though you can go put 10% down and this much down with FHA, 5%, whatever you want to do with FHA, most people are not doing that. Most people are doing FHA, 3.5% down. And what I'm noticing now with a lot of people in the housing market, just because how expensive housing is, most people don't even have their down payment. So a lot of these FHA buyers are now utilizing FHA, but then also asking for down payment assistance programs. And when people don't fully understand a down payment assistance program, it can also get you trapped as well. And what I'm noticing is we have a down payment assistance program in Georgia. It's called Georgia Dream. And I don't want to knock them. Yes, they're great as far as helping people achieve the thing of buying a house and getting their dream, right? However, with Georgia Dream, they have this thing where once you purchase the house, your down payment that they utilize. So if they give you, let's say, $10,000 in the down payment, when you go to sell that house, you have to repay that no matter when you sell that house. It's a non-forgivable loan. It's not a forgivable loan. You have some programs where within 5 years, they'll forgive the loan as long as you stay in the house. You have some grant programs as well. Some of these down payment assistance programs, maybe it's forgivable in 5 years. However, your interest rate might be higher. So you just got to understand the ins and outs of these down payment assistance programs. But what I'm noticing a lot with some of these FHA home buyers is that they're utilizing FHA, but then they're also utilizing down payment assistance programs. And so with this down payment assistance program, they're not even putting anything down when they go to close, or they're putting little to anything down, maybe $500, $1,000 or whatever to close on said property. And so now you find yourself again possibly underwater going forward, but also a second mortgage on the back end that's a debt that's owed if you try to resell it in the future. And now you can't get out. Again, another personal experience, and I might have talked about this before on the live that I had. I was working with a lender. I helped a recent buyer purchase a home, and I came in contact with the lender because, of course, every time I work with lenders, anyone in the industry, I always like to be very transparent, have connection, have conversations, understand things, put the buyer on the phone with the lender if they want to get on the phone with the lender, try to have conversation to have everything, because we're all in this together when we're helping somebody purchase a house. And with that being the case, the lender reached out to me on the back end and was like, hey, I have a person who bought a home several years ago using this down payment assistance program. However, they unfortunately lost their job recently and they're needing to possibly sell their home. They're going into distress, X, Y, and Z. They used the program that was the non-forgivable down payment loan. And that's the second on the back end. And because of that, now, unfortunately, that person is stuck and they might actually see that foreclosure situation happen. So again, these are real situations, real stories. And this is why I'm discussing this and really digging in deep when it comes to the current real estate market in the Metro Atlanta. Again, every market is different. As you saw earlier, David had announced that they're still seeing multiple offers. They're still seeing buyers out there buying, things occurring. But, and hey, what's going on, Lang? And then, and in some parts of the Metro Atlanta area, some areas, you might still get, depending on where the houses are at, you might see multiple offers happening, right? Maybe 2 or 3 people offering on the property because it's in a certain subdivision where a lot of people haven't been selling homes and somebody always sought after trying to be in this neighborhood. And because of that, you might see 1 or 2 offers kind of hit on the house, and you might see a little overpriced as far as when they close. But then on the back end, you'll see it might have closed for a little bit more, but then on the back end, you see so much given in closing costs, like as far as the concessions. So when it comes to so I'm in Georgia, so we'll just head down to Georgia. They're overall 1.2% Conventional loans, you're at 0.71%. FHA loans, you're at 2.66%. And that VA, again, you're at 3.71. So again, this is the stress happening as far as people not being able to pay their mortgage payments. And this kind of goes into more what we read earlier in regards to that. It shows you year over year the change in the serious mortgage delinquency rate. So it's showing you here the states that have delinquency. As you can see, the numbers are not huge numbers, right? But we're starting to see a shift happening. So again, I don't want to be out here being the person like scaring you, saying, oh, we're at 50%, 40% mortgage, delinquencies or foreclosures and everything. But what I'm saying is that we are starting to see a little uptick. And as we know, normally foreclosure is a natural cycle in the housing market. It sucks and it's unfortunate for people to have to go through it, but this is, what typically and normally occurs. But as you can see, Florida is high, Georgia, and again, it's not like super high, but you can see the percentages kind of ticking up. All right. And it says right here, the loans that hurt the most. Not all loans are built the same. Government-backed loans like Federal Housing Administration, which is FHA, and the U.S. Department of Veterans, VA mortgages are meant to help people with lower incomes or less savings get a foot on the property ladder. They come with lower down payments and more forgiving credits rules. They've opened the door to ownership for millions of Americans, but they also come with tighter margins, less room for unexpected costs. When escrow payments rise, these borrowers feel it most. Totality data shows that serious delinquency rates from FHA are 5 times higher than for conventional mortgages. And again, with conventional mortgages, most people are putting down a nice, a nice down payment. So I know a lot of people that I talk to that go conventional, they typically want to put 20% down because they want to avoid the PMI, which is the private mortgage insurance. And so now, again, if the housing market should shift and you should see home prices go down, if you put 20% in, it might not affect you as much. So if you needed to sell the house in about a year, about 3 years or 4 years from now, because you've already put a substantial chunk down, and as long as the housing market in your area, in your neighborhood is not trending significantly down, by the time you hit that, also, it depends on how you're paying your mortgages, right? If you're paying it according to amortization, as you look at your amortization schedule, if you're putting an extra $100 down a month on top of already putting that big chunk of down payment on the house, your mortgage might be lower. So when you go to sell, you might be scraped my mic. You might be able to kind of skip out on or see that difference as far as that sell compared to your current debt when it comes to that mortgage. All right, so then again, this looks at the mortgage delinquency rates by the loan type. So as you guys can see, FHA, of course, is high again. So you can see it, and then it went down, and then the same thing happening with VA. So it kind of upticked in the November timeframe where the mortgages went higher. And also, if you guys don't know, at one point the government was giving bailouts in regards to people paying their mortgages. However, now they have tightened it even more, and when it comes to people just being able to call their loan servicer and saying, "Hey, I need, I can't afford my mortgage," and with me not being able to afford my mortgage, how am I able to, keep paying on something that I can't afford? And at one point, like I said, they were allowing different things where they would put it to the back of your loan, but you had to pay X, Y, and Z. But now I think you have to pay consistently at least 3 months. And then you can only get like one workout, I think, a year, but it has to be a consistency of you paying 3 months before you can do that. So if you call your servicer, they help you out, and then they say, okay, we're going to help you out. We're going to move those payments to the back of the loan. They're not going to just forgive them. We're going to reorganize the debt. Once we reorganize this debt, we're going to allow you to catch you up per se to your current mortgage payments. We're going to allow you to pay going forward. So what people were doing, they were doing that. Then they would fall behind next month. They wouldn't pay again. Then they would call back, and then they would do it again. But now they're not allowing that. So if that happens to you currently, and if you miss the payment the next 3 months, then you just have to figure out another way to pay that mortgage, because they're not allowing it no more. So be very mindful of what you're doing. The problem is that a lot of people started to take advantage of said programs and how things were put in place, or they were trying to put things in place to help people out, so that way we don't foresee a situation happening economically in in the country and in certain areas. But people take advantage of everything. I've even seen people who get FHA loans, and the first year, typically with FHA and VA loans, the first year you're supposed to live in the property, and then after a year per se, you can then go about renting it out. I've seen a lot of these quote unquote local investors, even somebody on YouTube that I had checked out their channel, and they were like, "Oh, we just got this house, and then we are Airbnb-ing it," and my nosy behind, I went and I was like, "Well, let me see," and I looked at when they bought the house on my MLS, and I was like, "Oh, they got an FHA loan. They're not supposed to do that. That's mortgage fraud." But a lot of people are doing that. So that's why a lot of stuff, they're trying to tighten a lot of stuff up, because there are a lot of people that are utilizing these programs and these resources, and they're doing it not for the good of what they were put in place to do. And because of that, unfortunately, the other people going forward they're not going to be able to utilize them the way these people utilize them ineffectively, because they took advantage of said programs in place. So when somebody that actually needs it, that's always been in time, always been a good citizen, always done what they were supposed to do accordingly, now you have somebody that's trying to work the system, messing it up for everybody. So just want to let you guys be mindful. So, and this kind of goes more into that data again. So we kind of talked about that, so I don't want to review that again. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your feelings. Like I said, I'm not here to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just here to give you some information of what's happening currently in the housing market. And again, every housing market is different. We are digging more into this Metro Atlanta housing market. So, so that is some stuff happening. And again, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina is where they're kind of seeing that whole mortgage payment stuff. Hey, what's going on, Miss H? How you doing? Thanks for joining us. All right, so now let's head over to this part. So it says Americans face major opportunity after housing market shift 2026. So this was written in May 7th, 2026. This is by The Street. And so basically they're talking about now, if you are what is this? These daggone commercial things. There's one thing about these pages. This thing was not popping up earlier. Now it's popping up. Hopefully we get by it. But now they're talking about if you're looking to buy in this housing market, because the shift that's happening, you might have an advantage as far as buying in this current housing market. But again, make sure you are being cautious. Let's kind of talk about what they're talking about here. So this is more an article geared to, and they had a conversation with investors. So take this with a grain of salt if you're not an investor, right? It says the dynamic, shoot. Says buyers' new leverage in 2026 housing market. Just a few years ago, negotiating down a home price over an inspection report may not have been an option. Aggressive buyers were often, oh Lord, here we go. Let me just do it. I'm just going to not highlight it and just read it this way because this is acting crazy. And I can't get this daggone thing off my screen. I don't know why it's here. I'm like, I don't want to click it because I don't want it to start saying noise. Just a few years ago, it says aggressive buyers were often waiving the contingency and agreeing to take properties as is. Typically, the last real chance for a buyer to renegotiate or back out of the inspection process was much less of a leveraging point in 2021 and 2022. It says the dynamic has flipped entirely, according to Meyer, who pointed to the inspection report period as one of the strongest negotiating tools available to buyers right now. With listings sitting longer and fewer competing offers, per home, sellers are increasingly willing to absorb the cost of repairs or hand back credits at closing rather than risk a deal falling apart and start all over. Again, this is in certain areas. Take this with a grain of salt, because if you're in New Jersey or if you're in a certain place, they might not be doing that. So you might go up there and say, oh, I want to use my inspection report to help me, facilitate getting prices off the house, concessions. And they might say, well, I have another buyer right here that is going to pay everything and I'm not giving them nothing. So again, take it with a grain of salt, depending on where you're located. Rhonda said, that's the good old capitalism in action. Do they really prosecute the FHA fraud? It definitely is the good old capitalism, Rhonda. And that's one thing, about America. This country is a capitalistic country. And it's also, I say America is a great marketing country. I say this all the time to people. America is in the business of marketing to its citizens. So people overconsume in this country because America is a great marketing country. And because of that, we as our own citizens, we participate in capitalism on an extreme, everyday basis. And when it comes to the prosecution of FHA fraud, they are starting to double down on it now. So it's not as heavily done per se. However, they are starting to prosecute people who are committing FHA fraud, mortgage fraud. So people need to be very careful. Similar to like the people who got the PPP loans and all those things, be very careful, because what's happening now, and this is just from my perspective, I don't know why they're really doubling down and trying to get these people per se, which, you know, people need to be got if you're doing something wrong. But I'm thinking because America, we're having this, in my opinion, we're having a tough time when it comes to the debt. We have an astronomical amount of debt, and as time goes on, and the report is showing is that it just keeps going up and up and up. And so, how do we kind of start to get rid of some of that debt? That's what I'm looking at as, like, let's start digging in, let's start executing, you know, getting rid of certain programs, let's start getting people who have been stealing, let's start, and you know, it's a lot of people at the top that steal every day, right? So that's just my assumption, my opinion. I'm gonna start the because I'm seeing that I'm freezing a lot. I don't know why I'm doing, why my computer's freezing. All right, let me know if you guys can see me, because my computer froze. I'm like, did somebody trying to get me? All right, my computer froze, so let me see. All right, hopefully I'm back. So it says, in regards to, again, this is on an on an investor, and I think it's probably freezing because this daggone video here keeps playing. So he said, you're actually going to probably make money by having an inspection. Meyer said it's going to cost you $500, but you're going to get $5,000 back in concessions from the seller, or they're going to fix something you would have had to come out of pocket with. He said this is one of those tangible opportunities buyers face in 2026. So again, depending on where you're at, this is something that you could possibly be able to leverage, which you couldn't do in 2020, 2021, 2022. Couldn't really leverage the inspection because people were just buying houses. They were just selling at overpriced and everything. I might take this particular thing off my screen just because it keeps freezing my computer. And I really wanted to read the second part, but it's just, this daggone thing is freezing my computer. All right, let's go down to the second part. Let's just read this part. So because the first part was trying to give you insight as far as the second part, but again, using the inspection. So it says the inspection, come on now, computer. The inspection leverage point is a byproduct of the broader changes Meyer has been tracking for months across bigger pockets coverage, including a meaningful drop in investor sentiment. So as you guys know, some investors are no longer purchasing at the height in which they were purchasing, let's say in 2020, 2021, with those lower interest rates, and also even during the great financial crisis that happened in 07, 08, 09, 2010, 11, 12, where they were kind of purchasing these single family investment properties. It says, in corresponding rise in motivated seller behavior in bigger pockets, Q2 2026 investor pulse survey, the community forward looking pulse index dropped from 150 in Q1 to 112 in Q2, signaling that even active investors are recalibrating expectations heading into the second half of the year. The same softening is what gives buyers more room to negotiate. What we're seeing in the market right now is actually what a lot of people want, which is discounted pricing, better negotiating leverage, better quality assets on sale, Meyer told The Street in an exclusive interview last month. This reinforces that the belief that while broader conditions feel difficult on the surface, they are actually reward disciplined buyers. The inspection mechanic is one of the cleanest illustrations of that point. While changes remain for real estate investors and everyday home buyers in 2026, individual deals can be negotiated more effectively than 5 years ago. Buyers who understand this are pulling money out of transactions that would have been take it or leave it and propositions in 2021. So basically, he's saying, like, utilizing that inspection report to kind of go on there and negotiate even more. And if they're not giving you what you want, buyers are pulling out and they're saying, we're not purchasing this, and we don't have to, because why? Your listing has been sitting on the market for several months. All right, so I got rid of that, so hopefully we'll see. Oh shoot. Well, whatever. Then I just won't play that. I just did exit out something that I wanted to show. All right, so now I'm going to show this video. What is going on with my computer? Before I got on here, this computer wasn't acting like this. You get online, you start having conversation, and like now it starts to want to freeze and do all this stuff. So let's look at this before we head over to the video, because I'm going to pull up a video that is from our local Georgia multiple listing people. Let's get into this real quick, and then we'll get into some of the foreclosures some of the stuff that I'm seeing on the back end inside our actual system, and then we'll go into the video. And then if you guys have anything else you want to kind of let me know or contribute to, let me know. So it says right here, March, according to Zillow, March 2026 housing starts increased in March, but falling new home prices, rising resale inventory could keep builders sidelined. So this is talking about builders wanting to really build anymore. It says what happened? Housing starts increased nationwide in every region in March. Single-family home building increased in February and surpassed year ago levels. While this means builders are starting and finishing previous authorized construction on current building sites, permitting activity for future projects trailed 2025 levels in March. It says building permits fell for both single-family and multifamily construction. Rising competition from resale inventory could continue to weigh on new home sales and thus future building projects. Rising construction costs and labor shortages could also temper new development. It says Zillow data shows the median price per square foot for newly built homes was down 1.8% year over year in February, and lower prices could keep builders on the sideline. So it's a lot of things that are keeping builders on the sideline. Of course, as we know, due to our country starting to export immigrants out of the country. Due to, so that's a shortage as far as contractors, construction people. Also, some of these projects that they were trying to get through for zoning, permitting, and all this stuff, they finally come, to fruition, and they're building them now. But because now they have a less amount of buyers wanting to buy, and so now it's causing inventory to sit longer. As I mentioned before when we talked, there's a Toll Brothers community down the street from me. There's a Triton Homes community down the street from me. Triton Homes community is building 12 single family townhouse homes, and they've been having trouble selling them. They have them priced they originally started at the $700,000 price point, then they went to $600,000 price point, and now what's happening is that they recently built 4 out because they're building them in phases, and they didn't build the other ones for purposes of trying to keep down that those tax values. But they finally sold one of the houses, but they've probably been sitting down the street for about 6-7 months. Also, the Toll Brothers down the street, I'm seeing a lot of empty inventory with the new construction. But what they've been doing, of course, they've been doing interest rate downs. They've been doing concessions, 11,000, 20,000 buy downs. I've even seen DR Horton do a whole thing where it's like 0.99% for your interest rate as far as a buy down. So it's very interesting what's happening right now. And again, this varies on the state that you're in. Hey, what's going on, Kevin? Thanks for coming over here, popping in. Let us know your thoughts of what's happening in this current housing market. And then also, if Kevin's available, maybe next Sunday he'll jump on here and we'll talk about the different type of loans outside of the normal loans that people tend to go and qualify for. But yeah, so that is a little bit about when it comes to the builders. So now let's get off of this. I'm going to show you guys real quick in the system. In our system, let me go back to, is this number 1? I'm going to go back to previous. I'm going to show you all, oh crap, okay. Let me pull this up first before I go on it because I don't want to show the person's name. But I'm going to show you the back end real quick. This is one particular realtor that deals a lot with foreclosures from REOs from the bank, but also she helps to sell investor properties as well. And so, yeah, I got to be very careful because some of this stuff got people's names on it. I don't want to show people's names. Let me see if I can. But let me know your thoughts, y'all. Let me pull this up. He said Kevin said it's crazy. Yellow. It's very crazy. This market is interesting. And I think, and again, like I said, I try to let people know that I'm really prefacing, I'm in the Metro Atlanta market, right? Metro Atlanta. So I'm going to preface a lot of this around Metro Atlanta as far as what I'm seeing day to day in the system, what I'm personally encountering with people that I'm talking to, having conversations with. Like, this is real information. So this is not no bull crappy information. So let me show you guys this real quick. So again, this is the back end. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. This is real data, real back end data. Okay. So as you can see right here, this person, they went into foreclosure history. Foreclosure history. I don't know if you guys can see it. 2026. And this particular property, the banks did take it back. They took their property back, and it is foreclosed on. It's an REO, and now this realtor is selling this particular house on the market. So I'm going to show y'all that part of it, and then I'm going to stop sharing it because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the other houses, and we're just going to look at the. I don't know what they're going to do. They might, hopefully, they don't, whatever. But we're going to go into see this real quick, so you guys can see what's happening on the back end, because I like to show the back end data, because I'm like, I get on here and I talk and I have these conversations, and I know people probably like, well, is he telling the truth? I'm like, oh, I'm telling the truth. So right here, so this particular realtor, she has about currently 12 listings on the market. Majority of her listings are either one, REOs that were owned by the bank, that are currently owned by the bank that are trying to sell, that went into foreclosure. She also has some corporate investor properties that are trying to liquidate and reorganize their portfolio. So we're seeing a lot of this happening now in real time. So this is the one I just showed you guys. As far as if I scroll down underneath, it said foreclosure. This particular people right here, this is Mr. Cooper address. So this is the mortgage servicer or somebody, and Mr. Cooper now has this particular property. So it foreclosed. Right here, you have the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. So this was a VA holder. Oh, I'm showing the whole address. Sorry. Ooh. This is the VA holder. Hopefully they don't come over here and try to get me for showing people's address. This is the well, I guess you can see the address up here too. So at this point, you see the address. Shoot, I don't know. Whatever. What can I do? So this is the VA holder, the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. If you guys don't know, they do also see said properties as well. And then they it's this website called VRM Properties. And VRM Properties, if you go to their website, they typically have properties that have been taken back through the Secretary of Affairs. They've been taken back, and then VRM Properties, once everything is cleaned out, they move everybody out the house. Effectively, they resell them through those websites. So if you want to go check out their website, you might be able to find something. I don't know if it's in, they're in different states per se. You might be able to find something on there if you're trying to buy a house. Right now, I said people are buying a house, try to, think smarter and pay less if you can. I'm not saying, go in there if somebody's house is, if they're just a typical homeowner and their house at $500,000 and everything around it is selling for the same price point, not to go in there and be like, okay, I'm gonna give you $300 for it. But if you really do your due diligence, and if you're really looking for a steal, then find houses that are possibly, taken back by the bank or the VA, different things like that, and see if you can get a deal. But also be very cautious too, that these houses might have complications, and these banks and they're not fixing stuff. So you got to be mindful of what you do. Hey, what's going on, Donna? Thanks for joining. Again, if you guys didn't see it at the top of the live, I want to say happy Mother's Day to everybody that is a mother or someone who has held a place as far as being a motherly figure. I want to reiterate that again and say happy Mother's Day to you guys as well. Rhonda said, is this not public knowledge? If it's public knowledge, it's public. It is public. It's public knowledge, but I don't think a lot of people go inside like public records to get this information. So I just try to be very cautious on YouTube, because I've done a video before where it was public knowledge in regards to a housewife of Atlanta who went into foreclosure, and her address, it was public knowledge on Zillow and everything, and they struck my video. So I was like, okay. So I just try to be very cautious, but at this point, you guys see the address. So if you want to look at it, you can. All right, next, as you can see right here, this particular property, this is an investor that owns this property. So again, liquidating these institutional investors or liquidating their property. So you have an investor liquidating their property. I think the next property is actually a homeowner. So let me just move down here, because I don't want to show the homeowner's information, because I think the next one I believe was a homeowner. Let me see. 5. I think 5. Let me go 5. Is this one? Oh, that's the homeowner. Oh, my bad. I didn't show his name. Jesus Christ. Get me. All right. So this right here, I was trying to remember what property was a homeowner. Lord Jesus, forgive me. So again, you see that Penny Mac, they now hold this property as well. So Penny Mac, I believe, is Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. Let me see. I might be wrong, but I'm just want to make sure I'm. No, it's not. So Penny Mac is just the mortgage. It's just the mortgage servicer. So it's not. It has nothing to do. It says Penny is a lending national is a non-bank mortgage lender and servicer. So you have that right there. So again, this is what's happening. Let me screw past the next person because I didn't told their business down with their whole name out there. You have another thing right here in regards to a mortgage. The bank, the mortgager taking it back again. REO property, taken back by the bank. You have another right here, another LLC trying to liquidate assets. You have another one right here, Blackstone, Home Partners of America. I know this just because they have certain titles for their entities. So again, if you guys don't know what Home Partners of America, they were a lease-to-own company. They have now been dissolved, and Blackstone actually went in, bought the business, acquired it per se. Then they dissolved it because Blackstone already have rights with Tricon. Was it Tricon? I think it's Tricon. But I think it's Tricon. Like Tricon is a rental property, their rental property division in which they rent property, and they do a lot of Tricon in Georgia as well. So they dissolved Home Partners of America, and so what they're doing now is they're liquidating a lot of those homes that were rentals through Home Partners of America and trying to sell them. Right here, you have another mortgager who took the house back. So this is another REO. Right here, you have another Secretaries of Affairs. So another VA veteran, unfortunately, had to foreclose on their mortgage. And sometimes it could possibly be maybe they didn't pay the mortgage. Maybe the person might have passed away too. Because sometimes I see that too when I look up this information. Because I always like to dig deeper, but I can't do it on this live. Well, I'll kind of go and I'll see like, okay, who owned the house? Who's the person's name? And then I'll see if they might have passed away or not. Because sometimes it occurs too because someone has unfortunately passed away. Family, maybe they didn't have family, or maybe they do have family, and the family doesn't want to take on the mortgage, or they just don't care and they just let it go. So this is another VA one, and then this one is another LLC liquidating. So out of the 12 properties that this particular realtor has, they have one that's a personal homeowner. Everybody else is either REO, institutional investor trying to liquidate and reorganize their portfolio. And like I said, there's certain realtors in the Metro Atlanta area that once I see them pop up, I'm like, oh, it's an REO or it's a company that's selling. And she is one of these realtors. And so, yeah. But I just wanted to show you all that so you can see, you know, what I'm telling you as far as when it comes to Metro Atlanta area. And now we're going to get into this video real quick and let me know what you guys are feeling. And this is from Metro Atlanta as well. And they're talking about the home sale situation.
And Metro Atlanta's housing market may be entering a new phase heading into the summer. Sales are down, pending contracts are falling fast, and inventory is climbing. All signs that demand may be easing even as prices hold steady. Now, at the same time, Google Trends are showing a spike in search patterns that look eerily similar to what we saw in 2008. And again, as the pandemic took hold in March of 2020. So that begs the question, what is really happening here? A healthy rebalancing or early stress signals? And joining me to talk about that is John Ryan. He's the Chief Marketing Officer of Georgia MLS. They are a real estate school in Tucker. And John.
So, this stopped sharing. Oh, y'all. It stopped sharing, sorry. So Georgia MLS is one of our MLSs. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. It's one of our MLSs. If you guys don't know, I'll probably talk about it sometimes on the live. Georgia MLS, FMLS, those are like the MLSs that are key to the Metro Atlanta area, FMLS, GMLS, and then as you go, Georgia has, I believe, I might be wrong, I think it's like 159 counties, and with those counties, different counties service different MLSs. Let me just make sure before I give you all the wrong information. Georgia, but I think it's 159 number of counties in Georgia. Number of counties in Georgia. Yeah, 159. So 159 counties, and then so let me see. Let me just so y'all can know. So out of the counties, there are approximately 25 multiple listing services in the state of Georgia, and they service different areas in different counties. So GMLS is one of them that service the metro.
Trying to look out for opportunities for themselves, their family. I mean, we're talking about homes, which is something everybody needs, whether you are buying or selling. So I want to start by asking what your reaction to the consumer behavior to these Google searches is.
Well, I think, Maria, that we're seeing a shift in the housing market, and it's something that we've seen really kind of happening over the last year or two. Kind of post-pandemic, and when the pandemic.
So this shift actually has been happening from just me being boots on the ground, to be very transparent. It's been happening since late 2022, 2023, from what I have been seeing. However, I think people are now starting to experience it because there was still this FOMO as far as people purchasing, and we had a migration where people were coming from New York, California. Also, we have a lot of international buyers that came into Atlanta, and that's what they're hoping will happen as well with this FIFA Cup coming. These international buyers, but with the different things happening, that we're seeing a lessening of that. However, a lot of Metro Atlanta is really, there are really more international home buyers and home owners that live in Atlanta. People will be very surprised the real makeup of Atlanta.
Pandemic was happening. It was a bit of a feeding frenzy with housing. I mean, we had very low inventory. There were multiple offers on houses. And the real struggle was for people that did see houses to go ahead and put offers in that were accepted because of such low inventory. And now what we have seen is really a shift with inventory rising. It's giving buyers a lot more opportunity now, and they can be a little bit more cautious and a little less sense of urgency that we have seen in the past. So with that rise in inventory, I think we're seeing a shift to a really more of a balanced market. Previously, before, we had about 1 month's worth of inventory was available through the pandemic years, and now we're about 4.7 months of inventory that's available. So that gives more options to buyers, and it gives them the ability to take a little bit more time and a little bit more selective in the properties that they're viewing and possibly making offers on.
John, you sound optimistic, which gives a lot of us hope out there. Looking at Atlanta specifically, and even at these web searches, it sounds like a lot of people have concerns. You talk about 2008, and there's a panic that settles in as to what many experienced and lived through. So are we in a safer era than we were back then?
Oh, without a doubt, Maria. There's not a housing bubble that we saw back in the 2008 era. I think it's just, as I mentioned, just
a lot of people feel like we're in a more safer place in regards to this time compared to last time, because they were dealing with, like, a lot of them talk about the subprime loans and different things like that. However, from my personal conversations with people who bought several years ago are in a good space. So if you bought several years ago, with the way the equity has increased from you buying 2010, 12, even 2019, or even some parts of 2020, you've been able to see that inflation of equity in your property, where if you want to sell it now, you could still make out without a problem. However, again, what I'm noticing and what I'm getting calls about and having conversations with people about these are people who bought within the last couple of years. A lot of these people are in their mid 30s, their early 40s, some of them in their early 50s, that are like, I bought a property several years ago and property taxes have gone up, insurance have gone up, my job, I no longer have a job that possibly can afford said price increases. And with that being the case, these people are trying to sell. And so we're seeing a lot of that. And again, with these corporate investors or institutional investors that made their way into the Metro Atlanta area, now they are liquidating too, because they're not making a return, because now these single family houses at once that they were getting this big return rental wise, they can't get it no more. A lot of these people are saying, hey, I don't want to rent these houses at these astronomical prices, so I'll go and I'll multifamily generational live now. I'll go back home to my mom and dad. I'll go into local apartments where the rent is cheaper, and I can get 3 first months of rent, or maybe a whole year off of my rent, or these different things in which are being given out. And so with that happening, you're seeing a shift that is going to cause a sense of distress on certain home buyers. Do I feel like it's going to be a massive amount of people fire selling? No, because there's still going to be people who don't have mortgages that are not selling. Even people who have passed away, unfortunately, if the mortgage is paid off, some families are moving into their houses if they don't have their own personal houses. And so then they're able to maintain said properties without it going into foreclosure. And so it just depends. Like, we're shifting drastically in different areas, multi-generational living. People who bought homes a couple of years ago that need to get out because the increase, they can't go out and live their city girl, city boy life no more because their mortgage or their home maintenance is just taking up too much of their funds. And then jobs are laying off, and then jobs are not paying what they're supposed to pay. Now student loans have come back into effect. So if you're not putting your student loans in the proper repayment plans, you're getting hit with, these delinquencies, which are now knocking down your credit score about 100, 170 points. And so it's a different turn happening. But I do agree in the sense of what he's saying as far as a distress when it comes to buyers that bought several years ago before the pandemic occurred, also buyers who bought in the 80s or the 90s or whatever, and then those buyers who don't have a mortgage. You're not going to see this sense of distress as bad as someone who bought within the last 3 to 4 years.
Shift away from a seller's market into a more healthy, balanced market gives those buyers more opportunity. And then on the seller side, they have to be a little bit more competitive in how they market the property. With more options that are out there, there has to be a compelling reason given to prospective buyers coming and taking a look at a property, why that this house or the house that's being looked at should be the one that an offer is written on. But no, there's no real concern of a housing bubble. I think more of it's there's some economic things that buyers are looking at. Of course, interest rates play a huge part in buyers, in their financial outlook in purchasing property. And I think affordability is also still an issue. We've seen housing prices stabilize, so we're not seeing the acceleration of housing prices that have gone up that we saw really through the pandemic years and just post-pandemic. We've seen slight gains in the sense of median sales price, but nothing that has accelerated. So I think interest rates and affordability, and then also, maybe a little economic uncertainty and the things that are going on in the world are making.
And I think we're seeing, as far as when it comes to Georgia, we're seeing this whole thing where they're like, oh, year over year, there's still a increase as far as home prices in Georgia. And I'm like, well, of course, because what I'm noticing, again, is that most of the homes that are selling are the top price point homes. So people are buying more homes at like $1 million homes, which is crazy because I'm like, how are these people affording it? But to each his own. I'm not hating on nobody. But they're buying these very expensive homes. And so when you take that and you average it into the different, into the data, it's going to make it seem like home prices are higher and higher. But what like he said in this video, we are seeing an affordability crisis. That's what I want to kind of say it as, is an affordability crisis where you don't have traditionally your 20-year-olds and your 30-year-olds really out here buying homes like they did in the past. We're seeing more of an older generation buying homes, which is traditionally not the case. But I always say, if homes get too high, who's going to be the next buyer of these homes? And if you go out and purchase an $800,000 home and you try to sell it, let's say years from now, who is going to be able to purchase that if you want that that increase as far as equity when you go to sell? So I don't know, just like I said, be mindful, but yeah.
Buyers a little bit more cautious, and as I mentioned, not having to go ahead and really make a quick offer because the market says if you don't, then you may not get that property.
Yeah, actually a really good opportunity for buyers to make sure that they're taking their time and finding the home that works best for them. It's a lot different than what we saw coming out of the pandemic, I believe, as you mentioned, when there was this frenzy and there was this high demand, and it felt like housing was being sold like hotcakes. So looking at walking into this summer, what is your outlook for the Atlanta housing market?
I think we're going to have a steady, active, dynamic market. Atlanta is a place where there's definitely going to be transactions and housing taking place. With the opportunity of corporations and the influx of new people coming into the Atlanta market, there's always a dynamic going on of housing.
And that's what I'm scared of, where he talked about the corporations. We don't want more corporations buying homes. A home is made to be lived in by people. And again, people will say, well, a corporation buys a home, they rent it out, so people do live in the homes, but they're not the owner of said homes. We want it to go back to the sense of when corporations and everything were not in the single family housing market. I know that the government implemented them into the housing market to help save them and relieve them from the time that happened during that great financial crisis. However, we need to come back to a place where normal people are buying properties. And I'm even okay with the local mom and pop investors buying, okay? I just don't want a lot of the entities being bought by corporate. And again, this varies depending on where you're at. And Georgia is a large amount, but you might live, let's say, in New Jersey, and it's a slither of a percentage as far as corporate investors buying, and you might get more of those mom and pop investors, because there are more mom and pop investors than there are institutional investors, to be honest. However, institutional investors can buy more at a bulk compared to possibly a mom and pop investor that's slowly but surely kind of making those purchases along the way. Is it Cotexita said mom and pop regulated out of business? Yeah, if I get what you're saying, as far as like mom and pop are no longer like really being able to survive in the institutional frenzy, as far as, well, not I don't say frenzy, institutional pocket. No, mom and pop investors, sorry, are no longer able to thrive because you have a lot of these institutional investors, kind of being in spots and in areas where typically a mom and pop investor might buy, but now you have these institutional investors coming in with a lot of money that can outbid or can win those homes over those mom and pop investors. So I don't know. We just got to be very careful, and that's the thing about the Metro Atlanta area, is that there are a lot of investors, and I'm like,
are being transacted. So I think we're going to see very similar to what we saw last year. We've seen a bit of easing going on, and as I mentioned, that is because of the inventory that's out there. But the market is still going to be busy. It's still going to be active. We are a very attractive marketplace when it comes to regional housing. There are other areas of the country that are suffering a little bit, but it's been a steady market at this point. The concern I think that we're looking at in terms of activity is we've seen a slight decline in the number of pending sales that are going to be where transactions are under contract. We've seen about a 21% decline year over year, and then about a 1.8% decline month over month from March going into April. So with that, we don't quite have the tailwinds of the seasonality. Usually in the spring and the summertime is the most active marketplace, but we're seeing with the pending sales, which is really looking forward, it's not quite as active as it has been, but nothing to bring concerns to the market at all. It just means that buyers are being very selective, and they're being really measured at the pace that they're going ahead and actually putting offers on property.
What's your advice to the sellers then, trying to navigate, walking into the summer, a lot of hope that they are timing themselves well to get their house sold to an attractive buyer, and now kind of experiencing some of this slowdown?
My first bit of advice is work with a real estate professional or a realtor that is in your local market. I think that's extremely important, to work with a professional that knows the marketplace, knows exactly how to price homes, where that price point is to really be competitive. And then at that point, a lot of the basics, curb appeal, and really good marketing, where your professional can go ahead and use the tools at their service to go ahead and attract buyers agents that are working with buyers to say that this is a property that they need to come in and take a look. So pricing the property, marketing the property correctly, but most importantly, working with a real estate professional and a realtor that is going to help you guide you through that transaction. So it really comes down to that pricing in the market.
And I don't want to leave out the renters. I know being able to obtain housing is not.
Yeah, so like they said, as far as if you're a current home seller in this market, especially the Metro Atlanta market, because again, every market's different, you want to make sure you price the house that makes sense. If you're really trying to sell the house and you're just not trying to put the house on the market just to see what you can get for it, but actually try to sell it. Because like one of me and my colleagues used to always say, we're in the business of helping people actually sell houses, not to just help people put a house on the market. The goal is that when someone comes to you and they want you to help them sell their house, that is the ultimate goal, right? You do have some agents who are very quality driven, where their whole goal is to say, hey, let me put your house on the market. And then they can go and they keep using that line like, oh, I have 30 listings. I have 40 listings. And I tell people, nothing against those agents, but you got to be very mindful. If an agent is out here and they have 30, 40 listings on the market, how are they servicing your particular listing? They can't. They're overwhelmed. They have too much, because a lot of them are based on quantity, not quality, and actually fully servicing you as a seller, right? So you have to be very mindful, because I know sometimes people get on these on the YouTube, and a lot of people say, oh, you want to work with an agent who sold a lot, who sold this, so that. I'm like, no, you don't. It's not. You don't want to work with an agent who sells a lot per se. You want to work with an agent. It depends on who you are as a person. I tell people you want to work with a great agent that understands the housing market, the current housing market, because every housing market changes, as you can see through time. But then also an agent who is really trying to help you sell your property. Because there's a lot of agents who just is quantity over quality, and they're just trying. It's a number to them. It's like, okay, let me get 60 listings, and if 2 of them sell, I made my my money for this month, and the other ones can either expire out, withdraw, or whatever. So you just gotta be mindful. Nothing against agents, but I just tell people as a consumer, a client, a customer, just be mindful as far as how you go. But again,
what it was 30 years ago, and a lot of people feel locked out, like that's not going to be possible for them and their families. For the renters of Atlanta, how is this impacting them?
Renters are really a direct funnel to homeownership. I mean, it is a transition. We have seen market rates in terms of the rental prices, really be exorbitant. But I think where the pain point is the affordability of properties and the interest rates that they would have to be getting in to go ahead and to make that payment. What we see is that renters can go ahead and they can make a rent payment, but then actually coming up with the money to go ahead and get that transaction started, the down payment money, all the fees and things that come into place when you purchase a home inspections and all the ancillary things. So the pricing of houses, it's been steady, but we don't see that housing prices are going to come down. So the real pain point is affordability in the sense of interest rates. The lower the interest rates go, the more buying power that individuals can have. But it's also being able to come up with the down payment money to go ahead and get into loans. But this is where really
like I agree with him in the sense of I don't see much of home prices going drastically down. I do see, as far as the Metro Atlanta area, I do see a softening of home prices happening, but I don't see it drastically going down, right? As you guys know, typically just outside of housing, if things go up, they go down, but they don't go all the way back down to where they used to be, right? Just take, for instance, gas. When I was growing up in the 90s or, and of other people that might have came, prior years before me, the gas prices were like 94 cent, 95 cent, 98 cent. And then now the gas is, depending on where you're at, $5, and when it goes back down, it might go back down to maybe $3.99, but it's never going to go back down to 95 cents. So that's going to be a similar thing with housing, right? It'll go back down, but it'll never go back down to what it used to be in the 80s or, the 60s, right? So we have to readjust our mindset too when it comes to housing. That, you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence to get a good deal that works for you. And you don't want to just be mindful with the overall payments. You want to be mindful with the home payments, but you want to be mindful with your overall health when it comes to your finances. So not just looking at what your monthly mortgage is, but also if you have a car note, how does that equate into it? If you have childcare, how does that equate into it? If you have, food, gas, all those things, right? Utilities, home maintenance, as things happen throughout the years or unexpected situations occur, we want to be mindful about the whole health of the finances outside of that monthly mortgage. So that's what I just tell people. So will home prices adjust down in some areas around Metro Atlanta area in some states over time? Of course. But will it ever go back down to where people want it to be like it was, 20, 30 years ago? No. So we have to adjust to that particular part of the time.
Estate professional can also help because they can give guidance working with mortgage lenders, getting individuals qualified. And there are programs that are out there that can help first-time home buyers and different individuals that may be in different industries get a kind of a head start through some of the startup programs. So it's really kind of getting with a good professional, a good lender, laying out all the costs and so on that are associated with it, and then making that good informed decision of what direction they would like to go, and then working with their realtor to find out, where they should be looking, areas that work for them, and giving that guidance.
Any misconceptions that you're seeing out there, either from the professionals that you interact with?
All right. So I don't want to keep going on with that. I just wanted to kind of share that. So that is from our spokesperson from our actual GMLS, which is our multiple listing service, one of the services in the Metro Atlanta of Georgia, as far as I'm seeing the softening, the decline as far as home sales, pending sales, and different things like that. So, and of course, we talked a little bit about what's going on locally in Georgia. We dug into in regards to some people being delinquent on their mortgage payments. Some people, unfortunately, already foreclosing, having the REOs back to the lenders and the banks, also the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. Some of these foreclosures or pre-foreclosures are also local mom and pop investors as well that are, buying properties, trying to flip them, running out of money, hard money loans, different things like that, and they're hitting pre-foreclosures. So again, just be very mindful wherever you're at when it comes to real estate. Really dig into and understand the truth about the current real estate market where you're at, so you can get more ahead of the game, whether you're selling or you're trying to buy going forward. And hopefully you'll put yourself in a good position as time goes on. And especially since we don't have a crystal ball, we don't know where the floor will be at per se, as far as the dropping of home prices where you're currently at. So just be very mindful as far as what you're doing when it comes to you purchasing or even if you're selling a house. All right. Nonetheless, again, happy Mother's Day to everyone. If you are a mother or stood in place as far as being a mom to others, if you need me, have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Uh-oh, I don't know how to do this. I be always messing myself up. You can reach me at my cell phone number, 678-995-3170. That is my business cell phone number. So if I don't pick up right away, I will call you back. Just leave a message or send me a text. Also, you can always email me at DClarktherealtor@gmail.com. I also respond as well. If you need me or have any questions or need insight, I don't know why this keeps going off, but nonetheless, I'll also put the information below in the caption of this video. And I will see you guys next Sunday. So have a wonderful day. Kotaxita said, is that the city? I'm guessing. Have a wonderful Sunday. Take care. Enjoy yourself and to continue many blessings as far as health and future success. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next Sunday. All right. Bye-bye.